G'day, I'm Charlie Pryde.
And I'm Jennifer Pryde. Welcome to our YouTube channel, Pride of the Villages.
First, we want to apologize for taking so long to get this video out, as this trip occurred in early November. But with 400 pieces of video to edit and narrate, we wanted to put the same effort into this as we did our Rhine River cruise, which has now been viewed over 100,000 times. We hope you find this video as informative as that Rhine River cruise video. This video will highlight our recent trip to Portugal and 7-night Douro River cruise on the ship Emerald Radiance. An Australian company, Emerald Waterways caters mostly to the English-speaking market, with a mix of Americans, British, Canadian, and Australians as onboard passengers. Passengers on board Radiance lean towards the older couples that have cruised the Rhine and or the Danube and are looking for a new river experience. Due to Portuguese law, staff on board the ships that sail the Douro River are required to be citizens of Portugal, which is a natural fit since on this cruise you are only sailing through Portuguese waters. Questions about Portugal are easily answered by the crew and the activities on board, from traditional crafts, wine talks, and cooking demonstrations focus on Portuguese specialties. For us, our journey started in Orlando, Florida, with an American Airlines flight to Miami, and then the overseas flight on Spanish airline Iberia to Madrid, Spain. It was then only a 1-hour flight to Porto on Iberia. Emerald does provide, as part of the cruise, transfers from the airport to the ship or to their partnered pre-cruise hotel. We decided to arrive 2 days before the cruise and utilize the partner Hotel Caras Porto Ribeira. Not only did the early arrival ensure we made the cruise departure, but provided us the opportunity to explore the city of Porto, which has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1996, and in our opinion was the highlight of the trip. Now, the weather was a factor in our trip, as it rained on and off every day we were in Porto. But not to be deterred, we headed out on the town, and we will show you what we visited prior to and post-river cruise. Now that was a very active morning, and our plan for the afternoon was to tour the Bolsa Palace, which was just down the street from the hotel, and is also located within minutes walk from where the Radiance will be docked. The palace was built in 1850 and functioned for the most part as a commercial building hosting the stock exchange. Today, its purpose is primarily ceremonial, including hosting foreign dignitaries, and as a tourist attraction visited by 300,000 people a year. Entry is only by guided tour, and the tours are conducted in several languages throughout the day. Price for seniors is a very reasonable €7.50, and for younger adults like Jennifer, €12. Once you leave the assembly hall, there is no video permitted, but pictures are allowed. So here we go. Concluding our first afternoon in Porto, we need to mention that this is one hilly city, and since our hotel was one block up from the riverbank, it was obviously an uphill walk to most of the sites we visited. Now there is public transportation systems of buses and a metro. There is even trolley service to several areas of the city. We did not utilize any of these, but instead walked everywhere so Jen could get her 10,000 steps in, although it was likely closer to 20,000 on this day and night. The majority of the streets and sidewalks in the old town are constructed of cobblestone, so it is important to wear a very sturdy pair of comfortable walking shoes. Obviously, anything with a high heel should be avoided. If it rains, be cognizant that these cobblestones can become very slippery. Also expect to have to negotiate some stairs along the route to several attractions. With the goal of adjusting to a new time zone and avoiding an early bedtime crash, we headed over the river to Vila Nova de Gaia. Now the easiest way to go across the river is a double-decked Dom Luis bridge, which has an upper deck light rail line and pedestrian walkway, and lower deck vehicle lanes and pedestrian walkway. Since the wind was blowing 25 miles per hour, we decided to take the lower level. It was a short walk from the hotel along the Ribeira Esplanade, passing many restaurants and shops to get to the lower level walkway. I will say that the bridge at night is one impressive sight. The significance of Gaia is that it is home to the storehouses and tasting rooms of all the best producers of port wine. Back in the 18th century, with an expanding population, Porto ran out of space to store the vast quantities of wine, so operations shifted to the opposite bank of the river in the town of Gaia, and those storehouses have remained there since. There are also several museums focusing on wine and all associated components. For our dinner in Gaia, we found the Mercado Beira Rio, which we would describe as a food hall. We had some great tasting pasta there, then headed back to the hotel on the same route, passing the port wine houses, across the bridge, and back to our hotel for a good night's sleep. The next morning, it was back to exploring the city, and we started with a climb up to the Porto Cathedral. the most important religious site in Porto. Built on the highest part of the city and next to the walls that once protected Porto, the cathedral sits on a square with a column in the middle. This is where the criminals of Porto were once hanged many years ago. The exterior of the building has the appearance of a fortress with battlements. Entrance to the cathedral is only €3, and for €6 it also includes entrance to the bishop's palace, which is next door. Due to time, we opted just to conduct a self-tour of the cathedral. The construction of the cathedral began during the 12th century, but it was rebuilt and renovated numerous times throughout the centuries. This explains why the cathedral is a mix of architectural styles. The temple is predominantly Baroque in style, although the facade and the nave are Romanesque, and its cloister and one of the chapels are Gothic. The cloister dates back to the 14th century and is decorated with tiles painted with some of the scenes from the Bible. Several kings were married in the cathedral, and some important individuals in the history of the church are entombed there. From the terrace, a narrow staircase leads to the top of one of the towers and an observation platform. If you have the mobility and energy for the stairs, this platform offers impressive views of the city's historic center, the Douro River, the Dom Luiz Bridge, and the municipality of Vila Nova de Gaia. After our time at the cathedral, it was back to the hotel, time to check out and meet our Emerald host, who would take us to the ship, which was only a short walk down the river. Our luggage was transported separately to the ship and was being loaded on the boat as we arrived. So here is a quick orientation to the Emerald Radiance, which, like so many other European river ships, is comprised of 4 decks. Starting at the lowest level Riviera deck, besides the passenger and crew cabins, there is a small fitness room with towels provided. Next door is a wellness area if you opt for a massage, and there is a gift cabinet at the base of the stairs with some Portuguese souvenirs. Moving up to the Vista deck, where we boarded the ship, is the cruise director's desk, where you can pick up tour books and maps. Moving forward through the door is the Reflections restaurant, where you will have all 3 meals. More on the food on the ship later. Up once more is the Horizon deck, which has the reception desk and the Horizon Lounge and Bar, which is where you will likely spend most of your awake time while on the ship. At least we did. The lounge functions as the main gathering spot for all information, briefings, and onboard activities. This is where the captain gives his safety briefing.
So instead we had an emergency on board, an alarm will be sounded, and after that I will do an announcement informing you all about what's happening on board.
And the cruise director, her port talks.
All very happy for having you here with us. We are all looking forward to spending the next 7 days with you. We are all looking forward to showing you the beautiful country we have.
There is also a 24-hour coffee and tea stand in the lounge, and one of the best places to get Wi-Fi reception. At the front of the ship on the Horizon deck is the terrace. This is where I spent a lot of my time while on the ship was underway, as it gives you great views of either bank of the Douro River. There is an elevator on the ship that goes from the Riviera deck to the Horizon deck, but not to the Sun deck. The Sun deck has the important navigation bridge, and because of the weather on our trip was anything but sunny, the deck was not utilized that much. However, this would be an ideal spot on a sunny day in a lounger or walking the track. There is a small heated pool, but I never saw anybody using it during our cruise. I also understand they will have an evening barbecue on the Sun deck during warmer, drier weather. The Emerald Radiance went into service in 2017. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but this is where it's docked, on the location on the Porto side of the river. It is a floating dock which will rise and fall with the river level, so you may have a steep walk up or down to the ship. Now, I did mention at the start of the video that rain was a factor affecting our trip, and the Douro River Valley had experienced a lot of it before and during our visit. So much so that upriver they had to open the dam's floodgates to full capacity, which then prohibited the cruise ships from safely transiting the locks. This not only affected Emerald Radiance, but also the other cruise boats based in Porto. So the start of our cruise upriver would be delayed a day, and we were informed by the cruise director that there would be changes to our ports of call. The first change was that we would not be touring the winery in Penhejo. Instead, we would be visiting the Calem port house in Gaia, and we were soon on a bus on the way across the river. Now, Emerald operates its own buses, which gives them a lot of flexibility in rescheduling, and these buses are very comfortable with a convenient USB charging port for the longer rides. Jennifer and I were familiar with Gaia, having visited at night, and I would say it was a different vibe during the daytime. For one, the cable car was operating, which takes passengers up to the Moral Garden, which gives a great vantage point for sunsets in the west. Well, there are a number of port houses in Gaia that offer tours and wine tasting. Calem may be one of the most famous places for port wine tours in Porto. It certainly is the most popular. The House of Calem was founded in 1859. After 164 years, it still remains an award-winning business. In our guided visit to Calem, we first started with the museum, where we learned about the soil and the climate of the Douro Valley region and a variety of grapes grown there. Then the process of production, from harvesting of the grapes to the bottling of the wine, as well as what separates the different types of wines and ports. The cellars, storing millions of liters of wine, remain active and visitable. There we learned more about the unique characteristics of each type of port, next to the barrels where they grow old, protected from light and heat. Lastly, we were off to the tasting room. Port tasting packs a punch, considering the wine's alcohol content is close to 20%.
That's good. I like the tawny better.
Luckily, we had lunch before our outing. Still, Jen's face was looking a little flush after her tasting. On the way out, you'll exit through Calem's gift shop. Here you can buy full bottles of wines that you tasted, along with small gift sets like jams and chocolates. After the tour, we opted to walk back to the ship, vice taking the Emerald bus. But first we had to take in some street art, known as the Half Rabbit. Half Rabbit looked strange enough completely sober, and really weird after a couple of glasses of port, but still a very unique piece of art. Now, there is a passenger ferry that operates back and forth across the river from Gaia to Porto's Ribeira quarter, but we decided to once again walk across the Dom Luiz Bridge, especially since this was a brief period of sunshine that we had. Several vendors had set up stands along the riverfront, selling Portuguese souvenirs. Walking along the riverfront, you not only pass restaurants and shops, but some fascinating residential buildings, which I'm sure cost a lot of euros considering the locations and views. There was a lot of unique windows, doors, and mural art, including this one on the side of a building just down from our ship. Getting back to the ship, it was time for dinner, and this is a good time to talk about the food on board. The dining room is configured with 2, 4, and 6-seat tables. Meals are a good time to meet new people or just find a quiet table for yourselves. Breakfast is normally between 7:30 and 9 a.m. and is served buffet style with ready-order eggs, a 2-order omelet chef, along with waffles or pancakes, bacon, sausage, beans, and bread. There is also a good selection of yogurts, cereals, cold meats, cheese, fruits, and pastries. Several juices are available, and the waiters will bring you coffee and tea. Remember, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, or at least that's what my mother said. Lunch is typically served between 12:30 and 2 p.m. Lunch is also served buffet style, and there is a menu which will tell you what the main items on the buffet line are. The front counter is taken up by daily specials like beef roast, pork shoulder, or whole fish that the chef will slice for you fresh. There will be some regional specialties like this Portuguese soup. Sides and bread are along the right counter. There is a large salad bar and on some days a selection of seafood, which is no surprise considering we're only several miles away from the Atlantic Ocean. And there's always room for dessert. House wine and beer is served at lunch and dinner at no additional charge, as well as soft drinks. Dinner is served right after the cruise director's port talk, which is 7 p.m., At dinner, you will order off the menu, and there is a wide variety of offerings on appetizers, main courses, and desserts. There will be at least one vegetarian option for appetizer and main. There is a chef's recommendation side of the menu, which will likely feature regional dishes, and the right side will have additional dishes and Emerald Classics, which are available nightly. Your appetizer selection will mostly be a choice of seafood, salad, or meat. Likewise for the mains, seafood, beef, pork, lamb, chicken, or duck. I did have the Emerald Classic sirloin steak one evening, and it was very good. The desserts were not only great on presentation, but also delish, and you can of course order seconds on any of the appetizers, mains, or desserts. One of the highlights for the dinner was a traditional Portuguese barbecue, which I understand is conducted on the sun deck during warm weather. For us, it was held buffet style in the dining room, and featured chicken, ribs, sausages, and even the very traditional grilled sardines. Plenty of sides, salads galore, and of course desserts. So this is your opportunity to try those Portuguese grilled sardines. Outside of scheduled meal times, there is a continental breakfast available at the back of the lounge early morning. This was really beneficial during our departure day for the airport. There will be muffins or cookies on the lounge's 24-hour coffee tea station, and there is afternoon tea, served 4 to 4:30 p.m. in the lounge, and will feature finger sandwiches, cakes, and pastries. So after a 27-hour delay, the water level upriver had receded enough that the locks had reopened, and we were able to sail on our journey. The Douro River is an international river starting in the hills of Spain and flows 850 kilometers until it reaches the mouth at Porto and empties into the Atlantic Ocean. However, cruise ships only travel 210 kilometers of the river from Porto to Vega de Terron on the Spanish border and then return. Leaving Porto, we sailed under some very impressive bridges and soon approached the first dam and lock of navigation. There is a total of 5 dams and locks that the boat will transit on the way to the Spanish border. These dams are not only utilized to control water flow, but also generate electricity. The Douro River has some of the deepest locks in Europe, including this one, which is the deepest, with a water level difference of 35 meters. While the locks are deep, they are not very wide compared to the locks on the Rhine, and can only accommodate one ship at a time. At 12 meters wide, the captain was very skilled in positioning the boat to fit. You will have the opportunity to experience several of the locks during daytime hours, as cruise ships are prohibited from sailing on the river during darkness. This is also different from sailing on the Rhine and Danube, where the majority of the sailing is done during nightfall, moving from one port to the next. Because of this nighttime sailing prohibition, the Emerald Radiance will continue to sail on the river during the day, while passengers are on buses experiencing shore excursions. You will then meet up with the ship either up or down river after the shore excursion is complete. The best views for experiencing the locks is either on the terrace or on the sun deck. These locks are also something of an attraction for the local population as they gather on the overhead platform when the boat is transiting through. Passing through the lock, we enter a very scenic and narrow part of the river, where it becomes evident by the steep cliffs and shoreline boulders, why these cruise ships do not travel this portion of the river during darkness. At the end of the day, we dock in Ragua for the evening. Since our itinerary was modified by 24 hours, our first shore excursion was a visit to the Baroque village of Lamego, stopping to see the picturesque shrine of Our Lady of Remedies, a structure that stands gracefully over the town. The church sits on an elevated site of 1,950 feet on Mount St. Stephen, overlooking Lamego, and our bus dropped us off on top of the hill in the church square. We were allowed to go into the church, but not allowed to take pictures or video, so nothing to show you from inside. Nevertheless, the journey begins behind the church, as leading down to town is a staircase constructed of 9 terraces and over 650 steps. The Marian shrine, constructed between the 8th and 20th centuries, attracts pilgrims from across the country, particularly on September the 8th, the Nativity of the Virgin, and the pinnacle of the festivities in honor of Our Ladies of Remedies. Part of the pilgrimage is the faithful climb the stairs, some on their knees, stopping at each terrace, which displays tiled pictures depicting the Stations of the Cross. For us, it was a little bit different experience from the pilgrims. You have the option of taking a bus back down the hill, but if you're feeling active, enjoy an invigorating walk down the steps from the sanctuary to the town's main square. On the way down, there are several places where you can rest and some photogenic scenery. How did it feel?
It felt good. 656 steps. And I made it all the way.
Upon reaching the bottom, we proceeded on to the Museum of Lamego. The city is an ancient one, as the Romans came to settle the area in about the year 500 BC. The museum is located in the former bishop's palace, and the entry fee was paid by Emerald. It was a self-guided walkthrough, and you can see all the museum in about 30 minutes. After the museum, we visited a couple of stores that were up the street, and Jennifer found a few gifts. After our visit to Lamego, it was off to lunch, and this was another change in the cruise itinerary. Instead of having dinner at the Quinta da Pacheca wine estates, we would have lunch there, which, other than being served at a different time of the day, I'm sure was the same menu, music, and other features. Here are some of the scenes from that lunch. After lunch, we decided to walk it off a bit by exploring the grounds, including the vineyards, which provided background for some nice photos. There was also a gift shop for purchase of wine and winery souvenirs. And lastly, this Instagram shot before getting back on the bus and heading to the ship. During our Radiance sailing on the Douro, there was a series of informational talks, cooking lessons, and workshops focusing on things that Portugal is famous for, such as a cooking demonstration of Portugal's famous custard tarts, the pastel de nata, with our executive chef, pastry chef, and cruise director.
Also puts together here orange peel. So that's to give it a little bit more of aroma of orange. And
after receiving handouts of the recipe, we each got a tart for tasting.
Does it make a crunch? I hear the crunch. And it's warm too.
Good. There was an informational talk on cork, as Portugal is responsible for 50% of the world's cork production. There was a workshop conducted by local artist Maria Cocas, who restores the gorgeous blue and white tiles of Portugal and also does original work. Passengers had the opportunity to paint their own tiles, which then left the ship to be glazed and baked before returning. the last night of the voyage. A very unique keepsake to take home. There was a basic Portuguese lesson conducted by the staff.
Sweet as well, but we call it doce as well, or geleia.
Local musicians performed Portuguese songs one evening. There was some trivia and bingo games, with Jen winning 2 of them
51-5-1.
and receiving some prize chocolate. We also won the cruise photo contest and were awarded a bottle of port to take home. There was recognition of the outstanding crew during our farewell dinner. Besides the evening talks by the cruise director on the next day's activities, the primary means for accessing schedule information is on your television, as there is no daily schedule handout in paper form. Additionally, your television will provide satellite reception for real-time news, a whole bunch of movies, and weather. A few tips on the conduct of your shore excursions. The tour guides will utilize a remote audio system called the Vox, which is comprised of a neck lanyard receiver with an earpiece. Ensure you have this in your room charging up when not in use. Emerald does not utilize bottled water. They provide nice reusable water bottles that you can take home with you. Fresh filtered water is replenished in your stateroom daily. If you need an umbrella or walking sticks, they are in your cabin. At the cruise director's desk, they provided a free Douro River guide and fold-out map. The guidebook has great information on the areas you will visit, and the map shows all the locations on the river to include the towns, dams, and locks. There is also individual city maps for Porto, Lamego, and Salamanca, where you will have personal free time to explore. The guides ensure that bathroom breaks are calculated into the tours. However, you will want to keep some Euro coins handy, as a few of the public restrooms did charge for use. You will be issued an electronic ID tag to log on and off the ship when going on tours. Having logged out, let's show you our next shore excursion to Salamanca, Spain.
Salamanca city, the city of gold. They call it the city of gold. So our journey will take about 1 hour and 45 minutes with a comfort stop. Around 10 past 10, maximum 10:15.
Back on the bus, we were soon in Salamanca and on to the central market to try some of that ham and get a tour of the city. We then arrive at Salamanca's 2 adjoining cathedrals, Cathedral Nueva and Cathedral Vieja, and I apologize if I did not pronounce those correctly. So let's go inside. Our tour of Salamanca concluded with a performance by a tuna band, which was comprised of medical school students. Jennifer commented that she wished she had gone to this university. Not sure what she meant by that, other than she really liked the band's music. After a day visiting Salamanca, it was a full day of sailing back to Porto, and thankfully it was a sunny day. During the voyage, the ship did invite passengers to visit the wheelhouse, and it was interesting talking to the captain about navigating the Douro River. Something I noted was the lack of commercial ship traffic on the Douro compared to the Rhine and Danube rivers. In fact, the only ships we passed on the Douro were other cruise boats. Of course, our sail down the river included passing through the 5 dams once again. However, the functioning of the locks never get old, at least for us passengers. Whether it is going through the locks or under bridges, the boat has the capability to collapse the navigation and communications tower, which occurred quite often. It was very enjoyable being on the sun deck, passing the many vineyards that lined the banks. Portions of the Douro Valley have been designated a UNESCO site since 2001. Grapes are typically picked early fall, starting in September, and not much has changed in the harvesting of the grapes over hundreds of years. While machinery has been introduced, most wineries handpick their grapes designated for their flagship wine. Many consider the process gentler on valuable vines and grapes, and believe only a trained eye can ensure collection of the best fruit. Several of the wineries will offer opportunity for tourists to have a harvest experience, to include Quinta da Pacheca and Regua, although I don't believe this is an optional tour for cruise passengers. Amongst these many vineyards, you will see old farmhouses, wineries, and rugged little chapels. In addition to the vineyards, this and other parts of the Douro Valley have plantations of olive trees and orchards of almonds, apples, and apricots. Arriving back in Porto that early evening, we docked and had our gala dinner. The next morning, awakening to a rainy day, we went on an included bus excursion around Porto. This involved driving along the North River bank to the Atlantic coast, and then further into the city, stopping at the Porto Cathedral. At this point, we left the tour and did some exploring on our own, to include visiting several parks and gardens. This park and garden was home to the Super Bock Arena. Super Bock is the favorite beer of Portugal and is served on the Radiance. There was a lot of bird life in this park, to include peacocks, ducks, chickens, running free range. This gentleman seemed to be the Pied Piper of the flock and obviously had a daily meal in hand. Another park had some interesting statues where we got a chance to take a picture. It was also time to do some final gift shopping. Unique gift items to bring back include port wine, of course, olive oil, maybe some canned sardines, as their tins can be works of art, just don't open them on the plane. Items made of cork to include handbags and hats, the Portuguese glazed tiles, especially if they also incorporate cork, like this trivet. Besides the iconic sardine figures, the Barcelos rooster also has prominence in culture as Portugal's unofficial symbol, said to be the embodiment of the famous Portuguese love for life. You will find the rooster on many gift items. After an afternoon of walking and back on the ship, it was time to pack the bags for the trip home. Emerald provides transfers to the airport and to the Caris Hotel for anyone with an extended stay. We were a Choco group, with a departure time to the airport of 5:30 a.m., and our bags had to be out by 5 a.m. Jennifer and I were transported to the Porto airport by minivan, and it was uneventful flights back to Orlando. So some final comments on our 7-night Douro River cruise on board the Emerald Radiance. Like cruises on the Rhine and Danube, weather can affect river water levels, resulting in modifications to the itinerary, and it certainly did for our cruise. However, Emerald did a great job in mitigating the impact of the weather, and we did experience the most important aspects of the cruise. The staff and their service aboard the Radiance was some of the best we have experienced. Would we cruise with Emerald again? Well, we already planned to, with a future trip to Asia cruising the Mekong River. As far as European river cruising goes, I would certainly recommend the trip on the Douro if you have enjoyed cruising the Rhine or Danube, especially if you are a wine connoisseur. Porto and Salamanca are fantastic cities, and the locks on the Douro are an engineering marvel. Lastly, if there is something we did not cover in the video and you have questions, please shoot us a comment or an email to the channel and we will answer promptly. Well, that's all for now. We certainly appreciate you watching our channel and this video, and we hope that you're having a great day wherever you're at, especially during this holiday season, and we'll see you in the next video.